Hello, friends. This is your host, Mel, and tonight we step into a world where the impossible isn't just possible, it's documented. Long before the internet, before viral videos or strange headlines at the click of a button, there was one man who made a career out of collecting the unbelievable. His name was Robert Ripley, and he traveled the globe in search of the strange, the mysterious, and the downright bizarre, bringing back stories so unusual, most people refused to believe them, even when they were true. What you're about to hear comes from that very tradition, stories of oddities, curiosities, and real-life wonders that defy logic, reason, and sometimes common sense. So settle in, dim the lights, and prepare yourself, because in this world, truth is often stranger than fiction, believe it or not. Okay, that was corny, but hey, be sure to stick around until the very end of our final episode tonight. I've got some truly fascinating facts about Ripley himself. And trust me, his life may be the strangest story of them all.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Judge Abraham Fuller of Newton, Massachusetts, was so fanatically opposed to debts that when a physician was called to write out his death certificate, the doctor found his fee in the dead man's clenched fist. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an unusual railway. Cable cars in San Francisco have added charm and transportation for many years. Equally unusual is the Cliff Railway near Lynmouth, England. It has 900 feet of rails bolted to the solid rock of a cliff, and its two cars are operated with water. Water flows into the tank of the car at the top, and as it starts down, it pulls up the other car, which has been lightened by draining its water tank. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
There was a shoe worn by the ancient Egyptians with the outline of an enemy on its sole, so that the wearer could stamp on his enemy with each step he took. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a very remarkable man. Billy Marshall, a tinker of Kirkcudbright, Scotland, was truly a most remarkable man. In his earlier years, he enlisted in the Army and the Navy 10 times. Each time he enlisted, he deserted without ever being caught. He outlived 17 wives, and he became the father of 4 children after he was 100 years of age. He finally died in the year 1792 at the age of 120 years. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Colonel Peter Jefferson, who was the father of President Thomas Jefferson, could simultaneously upend 2 hogsheads of tobacco, each weighing 1,000 pounds. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about one of the strangest robberies in all history. In Lucerne, Switzerland, a grave robber in the mausoleum of General Ludwig Pfeiffer's wife got the scare of his lifetime. The general's wife, who had been interred in the mausoleum the night before, suddenly sat up in her coffin and screamed at him. The lady was still very much alive. Madame Pfeiffer, clad only in a shroud, walked all the way home and lived another 20 years. But she never smiled again. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Death's Head Moth was first seen in Blinkenwood, England on January 30th, 1649, on the very day King Charles I of England was beheaded. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the unusual story of the only people who never get fat. Here's a way to make sure you stay on your diet. Take a lesson from the natives of the Nuba tribe in Africa. They cut small portholes as the only entrance to their huts. By doing this, they keep their families very figure-conscious. Any member of the family who does not eat sparingly eventually will not fit through the small opening, and therefore is automatically barred from the house. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The steeple of the parish church of 𝒆𝒆𝒔, England, was buried under sand by a gale in 1605 and was exposed again by high winds 275 years later. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the strange story of George Thompson. One of the most unusual expressions of sorrow was shown by George Thompson of Pomfret, Connecticut, who literally clothed himself in sadness. He did it as a mourning gesture for his fiancée, who died on the eve of their marriage. As a constant reminder of his great loss, he wore the clothing that he had planned to wear on his wedding day for the remaining 30 years of his life. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A witch doctor in Angola, Africa, who wants to resign his profession, must attain an entirely new identity by wearing a mask day and night for a whole year. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the weird story of a man who staged his own execution. Some men have been known to do strange things in the face of death, and Giuseppe Carracci certainly was one of them. Giuseppe was an Italian sculptor who was sentenced to death in Paris for attempting to murder Napoleon. He persuaded authorities to permit him to travel to the guillotine in the purple robes of a Roman emperor, and he rode in a golden coach which he designed especially for his own execution. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Thomas Thompson of Wolfley, Scotland, a professional chaser of ghosts, stepped out of a house from which he claimed to have driven a ghost and was struck dead by a bolt of lightning. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a man's loyalty and a king's reward. Sir Edmund Wyndham was convicted of disrespect to the king as a result of striking a foe in the presence of King Henry VIII. Sir Edmund was sentenced to have his right arm chopped off. When the sentence was to be carried out, Sir Edmund requested that his left arm be cut off so that he could continue to use his right arm, his sword arm, in the defense of his king. As a result of his unselfish request, Sir Edmund was granted a pardon. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The parish clerks of Hungerford, England, for 800 years have visited each household on the second Tuesday after Easter to collect a penny from each man for church repairs and a kiss from each woman. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the Iron Man. Sir Thomas Overbury certainly deserves to be called a man of iron. He was imprisoned in the Tower of London, and for 3 months and 17 days was fed a daily diet of hemlock, arsenic, nitric acid, ground diamonds, and mercury, enough poison to have killed 20 men. But Sir Thomas refused to die. Finally, an injection of a powerful corrosive killed him. Later, the guards who'd been bribed to poison him were executed. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A girl in the Yurok tribe in Turkey can become engaged only once in her lifetime. This rule holds even if her fiancé dies before the wedding. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the statue that was executed for murder. In the 5th century B.C., a statue erected to Theogenes of Tassos, Greece, for winning 1,300 Olympic awards, was flogged nightly by a jealous rival. One night, while the jealous man was beating the statue, it toppled over and crushed him to death. Because the statue had killed a man, the act had to be punished. Therefore, the marble figure was tried for murder, convicted, and sentenced to be thrown into the sea, thus executing it for murder. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Bono was a French dwarf. He was only 18 inches tall at the age of 11. However, he ate 40 large cucumbers, 30 figs, and a whole watermelon for dessert each day. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the guard who was faithful even after death. Stephanos was a guard at the monastery of St. Catherine on biblical Mount Sinai. On his deathbed in the year 580, he pleaded to be permitted to continue his services. This unusual request was honored, and so after his death, Stephanos was placed outside the house of the dead. There, his fully clothed skeleton still guards the entrance today, a macabre reminder of the loyalty of a man many years after his death. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The most inhuman monarch in all history was King Deiotarus I of Galaha. On his deathbed, to make sure his favorite son would succeed him, he imposed death sentences on his 6 others. I'll tell you about the man who was saved by a serpent. Count Zinzendorf was a Moravian missionary to America. One night he concentrated so intently on his reading that he didn't notice a rattlesnake crawling over his feet. A band of Indians had stalked the Count in his tent in the Wyoming Valley of Pennsylvania. They were preparing to slithering over his feet. When the snake moved on without harming the Count, the Indians fled in the belief he had a charmed life. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The largest creature that ever walked the earth was the Stegosaurus. It weighed approximately 80,000 pounds, yet its brain weighed only 3 brain and its tail to control its massive hind legs. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the strange fate of Lord Brooke. Lord Brooke bombarded the Cathedral of Lichfield, England, to rubble. He then assured his shocked troops that the act would be acknowledged by a sign from heaven. If he was expecting a sign, he certainly got much more than he bargained. The building known as St. Chad's Cathedral was destroyed on St. Chad's Day. And then, a few moments later, a bullet that pierced one of his eyes. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
George Washington, during his entire 2 terms as President of the United States, refused to shake hands. He always bowed in the belief that a handshake was beneath the dignity of a president. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the most considerate uncle. Richard Dawson of Bradley, England, was probably the most considerate uncle in history. He was a very large man, so on his deathbed he worried that his 300-pound body would be an inconvenience to his frail nephew after he died. So, to spare his nephew the trouble, Dawson walked out to the garden where he dug his own grave. After he had finished digging, he laid down in the grave and he died. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Maggie Bogey of Colensburg, Scotland, lived to the age of 100 years and 4 months, and she slept every night of her life in the same bed. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the woman who was killed by bashfulness. In this era of women who are anything but bashful around men, it would be hard to convince anyone that there was once a woman who died of bashfulness. From childhood, Teresa St. John of Rodez, France, had become violently ill unless she turned away whenever she was addressed. Her shyness was so severe that she dropped dead when she found herself face to face with a man for the first time in 80 years. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
In 1798, Sultan Selim III of Turkey, in the presence of British Ambassador Sir Robert Ainslie, shot an arrow the incredible distance of 2,916 feet. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a remarkable woman. Lucy Page of Tamworth, New Hampshire, certainly exploded the theory that women are the weaker sex. In addition to doing all of her regular housework, she cared for 2 cows, made all the clothing for her family, spun 200 skeins of wool yarn and 45 skeins of linen yarn, wove 90 yards of carpeting, made 69 yards of flannel and 21 yards of toweling. And she did all of this at the age of 73, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The first air-conditioned house in the United States was Lime Air, built in Luray, Virginia by Colonel T.C. Northcott. It was kept cool in summer and warm in winter by air piped from the nearby Luray Caverns. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a weaponless duel. One of the strangest duels where no weapons were used was between 2 sculptors. The great Buddha, a statue in the Diamond Mountains of Korea, was carved 600 years ago by a sculptor named Kindo. It's there because of an unusual duel in which Kindo and a rival sculptor named Rao agreed that whichever created the poorer statue would forfeit his life. Kindo won, and Rao drowned himself. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Billy Dixon, a buffalo hunter defending Dodge City from an attack by Kiowa Indians, killed Chief Minimic with a single shot at a distance of 1 mile. The distance was carefully measured after the battle. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an unusual act of chivalry. Some of the most unusual events have happened to people during the heat of battle. During the siege of a castle, a battle was interrupted for an act of chivalry. William Grant, a soldier, was trapped atop a flaming tower of Dunsehead Castle in Erie. He was saved by an enemy bowman named John Butler, who attached a length of rope to one of his arrows and shot it up to him. Grant tied the rope to the tower and slid to safety inside the castle's walls. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Olav Tryggvason, who became King Olav I of Norway, avenged the murder of his foster father by slaying the killer with a hatchet. Yet at the time he was only 9 years old. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a prophecy of doom. There is no logical explanation why many times dreams come true with uncanny accuracy. On December 3rd, 1874, Mrs. Albert E. Royce of Bowling Green, Ohio, told her family that she had dreamed she would get sick on November 27th, 1877, and that she would die on the following December 3rd. As it happened, she became sick and died exactly as she had dreamed it 3 years earlier. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Frankie Silvers of Toe River Valley, North Carolina, was sentenced to death for killing her husband with an axe. She mounted the gallows eating a piece of cake and refused to be hanged until she had enjoyed the last crumb. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a very unusual pony. Here's the story of a pony that certainly was a child's best friend. In Lerwick, which is in the Shetland Islands, a pony saved a child from drowning. Seeing the youngster in trouble, it dove into the sea from a high bank, swam to the child's aid, and then scrambled ashore with its teeth holding the child by the clothing, all without a human command. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Brusher Mills of the New Forest, England, caught 3,186 venomous snakes in 14 years with his bare hands. He was so skilled that he was never bitten. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of the 𝒆𝒔 Chateau. The Chateau of Montal in France was built as a surprise for Robert de Balzac by his mother in the year 1534. However, it has inscribed on one wall, "There is no hope left." The reason for this sad inscription is that just as the castle was completed, Mrs. Jeanne de Balzac received the tragic news that her son had been slain in battle 9 years earlier. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The tombstone of Margaret Johnston and her 6 children in Trennet, Scotland, was erected over an empty grave. The family vanished in the 17th century without a trace. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the man who paid for his own assassination. When a man lends another man money, he certainly does not intend that it should be used to pay for his own assassination. But such was the case with William the Silent, father of Dutch independence, who advanced 12 crowns to a man by the name of Balthazar Gerard. Gerard had requested an audience with William, and the money was given to him to pay for his transportation. But the money was used by Gerard to buy a gun with which he shot William dead. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
When Kit Carson, the famous scout, was a boy of 17 in Franklin, Missouri, he ran away from the saddle maker to whom he was apprenticed, and the official reward for his recapture was 1 cent. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the reward given to a thrifty nephew. Thurston Manor and its vast estate in Scotland was to be willed by Mrs. Agnes Hunter, a widow, to one of her 3 nephews, who she invited to come visit her. The first nephew arrived riding in a coach. The second nephew came on horseback. But Robert Hunter, the third nephew, showed up on foot. His thrifty aunt was so impressed, she bequeathed to him all of her property. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Preston Hall in Scotland was built by Lord Adam Gordon, who spent every working hour of 31 years supervising its construction. On the day it was completed, he lost interest in the castle and sold it. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the world's tallest bouquets. Whenever people want to say something on a special occasion, many times they say it with flowers. And although flowers come in many colors, shapes, and sizes, the tallest bouquets in the world are found in Austria. The residents of the Lungau district carry them in a church parade each June 24th. and the bouquets which they carry comprise 25,000 flowers each. The bouquet stands 26 feet high, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Prayaga, a Hindu fakir, buried himself in sand with only his arms exposed to extend a begging bowl to people passing by 6 hours each day for 12 years. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you how Dunder Rock got its name. History tells of many great naval battles, but one of the most unusual sea battles that never took place happened in Dunder Rock on Lake Champlain near Burlington, Vermont. Dunder Rock so resembles the outline of a gunboat that a Dutch captain mistook it for an enemy vessel and fired a broadside at it. The stone got its name from the captain's exclamation when he discovered his mistake. Dunder was a blunder, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The casket of Queen Elizabeth I, while on view in Whitehall Palace, London, mysteriously exploded. The coffin was shattered, yet the Queen's body was unharmed. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a fantastic pilgrimage. The pilgrims to Mount Kailas in Tibet indulge in the most fantastic pilgrimages in the world. They must circle the 22,000-foot mountain on their stomachs. They complete each circuit in the bitter cold, and this requires 3 weeks. Yet many of the pilgrims circle the mountain in this manner 12 times, alternately rising and prostrating themselves day and night for 9 months. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Ludwig Weber, an innkeeper of Ruschitz, Austria, was so powerful that he could raise a 100-pound cask to his lips at the age of 80. He drank a total of 50,000 quarts of wine in his lifetime. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the church inspired by a footstool. The architecture of St. John's Church in London, England, was inspired by a footstool. It was built by Thomas Archer for Queen Anne, who, because she was preoccupied with affairs of state, simply kicked over a wooden footstool and told the architect, "Go build me a church like that." The 4 towers of St. John's Church were Archer's efforts to create a structure like an overturned footstool. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The 7th Earl of Crichton, while entertaining King James I of England, guided the monarch to his bedchamber by igniting a parchment recording a $1,500,000 loan he had made to the king. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the dancing corpses. One of the strangest funeral rites in the world is carried on by the Kapsiki tribe of Africa. When a wealthy native of the tribe dies, he's prepared after death for the gay life a person of standing is expected to lead when he goes on into the next world. This is done by hoisting his corpse onto the shoulders of the village blacksmith. The cadaver is then given dancing lessons that last for hours. As a result, they are known as the dancing corpses. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Duncan MacIntyre, the greatest poet of the Scottish Highlands, whose literary magnitude has been compared to Robert Burns, could neither read nor write. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a strange 14th century vigil. A bed has been kept ready for the arrival of a guest for more than 1,400 years. A monk named Pao Chi died in the year 514 in the Memorial Temple of Hangzhou, China. His last words were, "I shall return." Apparently, Pao Chi's fellow monks took him at his word, because they've changed the linen on Pao Chi's bed more than 57 million times over the last 14 centuries. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
There is a boulder in France so delicately balanced it nods affirmatively if the weather's clear and shakes from side to side if a storm is brewing. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a most unique man of letters. When Joseph Bernhard Dochen said, "Take a letter," miracles were about to happen. Herr Dochen, director of the National Library in Munich, Germany, was able to dictate 9 letters on 9 subjects to 9 secretaries in 9 languages simultaneously. He also mastered the Bible so thoroughly he could repeat all chapters and books from the Old and New Testaments faultlessly from memory, forward or backward. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Peter Minuit, who bought Manhattan Island for all of $24, was fired by the Dutch for extravagance. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the man who knows precisely when he will die. The coronation of a newly elected Temne chief has a touch of the macabre to it. During the coronation, the Kamrabi, or chief counselor, conducts the chief to the beach, which is strewn with a variety of pebbles. The ruler, blindfolded, grabs as many pebbles as he can hold in one fist. The pebbles are carefully counted, and the ruler is allowed 1 year of life for each pebble he was able to grab. At the expiration of his allotted span, a new ruler is chosen, the old ruler poisoned. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Cornelius Den Hartog of Oskaloosa, Iowa, smoked the same cigar twice in 50 years. He smoked half of it on his wedding day and saved the other half for his golden wedding anniversary 50 years later. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the world's richest heiress. You'd think a man with money would know something about arithmetic, but not the husband of Countess Elizabeth Angelique de Botteville of 17th century France. In his will, he left his wife 1 gold piece worth $5 for the first year of her widowhood. This amount was to be doubled each year as long as she remained unmarried. The Countess lived 69 years, and her legal claim amounted to about $737 quintillion. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
For 60 years, the price of cotton was reported daily to the grave of Al McGee of Glenville, Alabama, out of respect for a dying wish. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the greatest lover of them all. Harihara II, king of Vijayanagar, India, in 1398, had 12,000 wives, but they were not enough. The king fell in love with a girl from a neighboring kingdom merely because he heard she was beautiful. To force her into marriage, he began a war against her country. But his neighbor, Pharaoh Shah Tughlaq, proved far more powerful, and the marrying king lost his kingdom, his fortune, his 12,000 wives, and his life. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Pond of the Apostles in Chipperfield, England, is circled by 11 lime trees, each named for an apostle. A 12th tree named Judas was blown down by the wind. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a fantastic burglar alarm. The fabulous moon gate of the imperial palace of 𝒆𝒆𝒔 near Beiping was built 2,300 years ago of solid lodestone, a magnetic iron ore, as a protection against assassins. The magnetic attraction of the moon gate would betray anyone attempting to enter the palace with a concealed metal object. Thus, 𝒆𝒆𝒔's ingenious moon gate anticipated by more than 23 centuries the electronic eye. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
In Cuba, in 1898, famed surgeon William C. Gorgas performed surgery on a soldier by the light from a jar of fireflies. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of the King of Punishment. King Olav II Haraldsson of Norway, who reigned during the 10th and 11th centuries, took his religion strongly, and he set a severe example for himself when absent-mindedly he desecrated the Sabbath. Olav was whittling wood when a passing servant remarked, "Sire, tomorrow will be Monday." The king, whose shame was so great, picked up a pile of wood chips, placed it on his palm, set fire to it, and watched as the offending limb was entirely consumed. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Hugues, the Count of Provence, married first the mother, then the daughter, and finally the widow of King Rodolfo II to become King of Italy. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a town clock that hasn't told the right time in 700 years. In 1253, a band of conspirators in Görlitz, Germany, set out to kill the entire city council as they emerged from their midday meal. But one of the plotters warned the police. The town clock was set 7 minutes ahead, and as the criminals converged on City Hall 7 minutes early, they were disarmed. Later, the grateful council passed a law requiring the city to keep the town clock eternally 7 minutes fast as a memorial of their deliverance. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Cathedral of Chartres, ordered destroyed during the French Revolution, was saved because no one in the town would permit the debris to be dumped on his property. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a 19th century Superman. Arthur McMurrough Kavanagh of County Carlow in Erie was a respected man in the community. His friends and constituents sent him to Parliament for 14 years. He was an enthusiastic hunter, an avid yachtsman, a clever and keen fisherman, an expert horseman, and a world traveler. He mastered the skills of drafting and painting. He married a beautiful young woman and fathered 7 handsome children. Yet Kavanagh was born without arms and without legs. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
In Bilsdale, England, Ye Old Sun Inn was rented by the Ainsley family continuously for 500 years. In 1944, the Ainsleys finally decided to buy it. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the man who changed our eating habits. A French king helped revolutionize the fine art of dining. To avoid staining his snow-white lace collar when he was eating meat with his fingers, King Henry III constructed a crude device of tin and instructed the manager of a well-known Parisian restaurant to have copies made. The king introduced this new implement at a banquet in the restaurant in 1582. That restaurant, the birthplace of the fork, is still in business today under the same name. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
George Bothwell of Clintonville, Wisconsin, sold his car, and 2 months later, as it was being towed away, it broke loose, careened down the street, and crashed into his store. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an odd place to live. Okman, a poor foundling of Lahore, Pakistan, lived for 62 years upon the marble steps of the Mosque of Vizier Khan in Lahore. He was abandoned there by his parents at age 5, and from then on, the marble steps were the only home he knew. Supported by the charity of pious visitors, he lived, ate, and slept there in all kinds of weather, never leaving until he died at the age of 67. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Bicker, a city in England, was hit by 12 high-explosive Nazi bombs in World War II, and all of them were duds. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the singing sailors. During World War II, a British submarine lay disabled on the ocean floor. After 2 days of frantic efforts, the British Admiralty gave up all hopes of raising her. On orders of the captain, the crew began to sing "Abide With Me." Sedatives were distributed to all hands. One seaman swooned and fell against some equipment. The impact set in motion the jammed surfacing apparatus. The boat rose to the surface and made port safely. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Thomas Brown, a British soldier, lost his nose in the Battle of Dettingen in 1743 and had it replaced by one of solid silver. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a fateful phone call. In November 1944, a sailor on leave named Robert Dwyer entered a service club in Washington at 2 a.m., just in time to take part in a Bible reading contest. He won first prize, a long-distance phone call to his family in Louisiana. There was no answer. However, the operator kept ringing, and by so doing, saved the family from asphyxiation by a deadly gas escaping from a defective heater. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Sergeant Myron Cozier of San Diego, California, was shot in the throat in the Solomon Islands. The Japanese bullet severed his infected tonsils and left him otherwise unharmed and much relieved. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a funny election. A cigar store Indian was elected Justice of the Peace in Allentown, New Jersey in 1883. The statue, clothed with the fictitious name of Abner Robbins, was duly placed on the ballot and elected by a margin of 7 votes over the incumbent Sam Davis. Judge Davis, who'd held the office for many years, resigned in a huff when he learned that his successful opponent was a wooden Indian. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
In World War II, at the Battle of Mokmir Airdrome on Biak Island, 2 artillery shells, one American and the other Japanese, fused together by a head-on impact in flight. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an act of courage. Yuan Chang, a minister in the Chinese Foreign Office in 1900, stopped a plan to slaughter thousands of foreigners by changing one word of a telegram. Yuan substituted the word "Pao," protect, for the word "Sha," kill, in a message sent by the Empress of China. The courageous foreign minister was himself beheaded. for his act of courage. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Count Nesselrode was foreign minister of Russia for 40 years, yet he never learned to speak Russian. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a floating Christmas present. In December 1940, Mrs. 𝒆𝒆𝒔 of Niagara Falls, Canada, mailed a Christmas parcel to her daughter in Prestwick, Scotland. The ship carrying the mails was torpedoed off the west coast of Ireland, but a favorable tide floated the package and unerringly cast it ashore on the beach of Prestwick. The contents were soaked, but perfectly usable. The address was still legible, and the package was delivered 2 days after Christmas. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The faithful believe that Muhammad ibn Daud, a dead Persian sultan, will be resurrected, and a saddled horse has been held in readiness before his tomb in Khorasan since 1072. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you a fish story. The fishermen of the seaport of St. Malo, France, never retain the first catch of the season. As soon as they pull the first fish out of the water, they pour half a bottle of wine down its throat and toss it back into the sea. They believe that all the other fish will crowd around the returnee, and getting a whiff of the wine, will rush to the surface begging to be caught. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A 5-man bowling team sponsored by Roger Schmitz in a league tournament scored 187, 188, 189, 190, and 191. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a very choosy thief. Jean Poqueton of Haute-Vière, France, sentenced to death as a habitual thief, was told that he would be released if a pure maiden were willing to marry him. A homely orphan girl stepped forward willingly, but Poqueton took one look at her and said, "No, I'd rather marry the gallows. Hangman, do your duty." He was hanged forthwith in the city of Reims in 1234. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
O'Rourke's Ford in County Sligo, Erie, is never crossed by any man named O'Rourke. An ancient curse against a pagan prince named O'Rourke is never defied. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a very strange president. President Ignacio Comonfort of Mexico headed a rebellion against himself. The distinguished soldier and politician became president of Mexico in December 1855. 2 years later, December 19th, 1857, he became an active rebel against himself and effected his own overthrow and exile, February 5th, 1858. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Larry Lingle, age 17 months, of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, swallowed a nickel and coughed up a penny. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a strange death. In 1893, Henry Zigland jilted his sweetheart, who then killed herself. Her brother tried to avenge her by shooting Zigland, but the bullet only grazed his face and buried itself in a tree. The brother, thinking he'd killed 𝒁'𝒔, committed suicide. 20 years later, 𝒁'𝒔 was cutting down the tree with a bullet in it. It was a tough job, so he used dynamite, and the explosion sent the old bullet through his head, killing him. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
John Motley, English dramatist, was the author of Joe Miller's joke book. Joe Miller, a gloomy actor, could not read or write and never uttered a joke in his life. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an unusual temple. The so-called Snake Pagoda in Arakan, Burma, is a striking 45-foot-high structure which has the outside shape of a great coiled snake. The interior is fully furnished as a Buddhist house of prayer. People bitten by poisonous snakes are rushed here, often from great distances, to pray for a miraculous salvation from death. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Golden Pagoda in Bangkok, Siam, was erected by King Chulalongkorn at a cost of $500,000 for his 10-year-old son, and never used again. Believe it or not. You about an unusual purchase. Thomas Handford of New Mills, Lancashire, England, was a reformed drunkard and poacher who served many a term in the town jail. After 10 years of total from drink and petty crime, he saved enough money to purchase his former prison and live in it the remainder of his life, all by himself. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Officers in the Turkish Navy once were required to wear wooden replicas of their warships on their hats. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you an odd way to live to a ripe old age. Sir John Robertson, 5 times Prime Minister of New South Wales, Australia, had a peculiar, but for him, successful way to enjoy a good long life. Every morning for 35 years, Sir John bought 3 pints of rum. This shopping tour was invariably accomplished on horseback. The Premier consumed 1 pint of rum on the spot, gave another pint to his riding boots as a preventive against rheumatism. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
For 500 years, Japanese emperors signed every document with the imprint of a palm dipped in human blood, a signature that could never be eradicated. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a strange death wish. He had 13,140 wives and 2,800 children. He lived in a palace of 10,000 rooms, and for a period of 27 years never slept in the same room twice. This was Qin Shi Huang Tai, the first Chinese emperor. He built the Great Wall of China, and to make it strong, he buried more than 1 million coolies in its walls. This strange emperor ordered his entire family buried alive with him at his death. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The largest clan in Scotland isn't MacDonald. It isn't Campbell either. According to statistics compiled by the Scottish Post Office, the largest clan in Scotland is Smith. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the clock that was repaired by a child. After ticking off time for 195 years, the clock in the tower of the Church of Penn stopped in 1910. For the next 15 years, Europe's finest clockmakers tried in vain to get the clock to run. Then one more person asked permission to try. Patricia Cuthbert succeeded where master clockmakers had failed. The clock has been running ever since, repaired by a 13-year-old girl. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
One of the cleverest hunters in nature is the yellow-winged sparrow. When he goes after a grasshopper, he lures it into the open by doing a perfect imitation of the grasshopper's chirp. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a church disaster. It happened February 23rd, 1887, in Bussana Vecchia, Italy. On that day, a furious earthquake rumbled through the town, split open, and crumbled the parish church where a service was in progress. The ear-shattering quake completely razed the church, caused the deaths of every single member of the congregation, some 300. Yet the clergyman presiding at the service escaped completely unharmed. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Frances Isabella, wife of the 4th Marquis of Bath, insisted all members of the household wash their money every day. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an astonishing builder of roads. One wonders whether the people of Ceylon pay honor to a certain foreigner. A foreigner named Skinner. Skinner was a road builder and engineer who literally carved Ceylon out of the darkness of jungles and swamps with some 3,000 miles of highways built over a period of 50 years. As awesome as these tasks must have been, the most tremendous feat in his career was an 11-mile stretch of road built when he was just 16 years old. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Duke of Wharton was a member of the Irish House of Lords for 3 years before he was old enough to vote in a parliamentary election. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a man who overcame a fantastic physical handicap. Men have overcome enormous physical handicaps. They're true stories of blind mountain climbers, deaf acoustical engineers, and there was Hermann Unthen, a native of Prussia, who became a world-famous violinist in the 20th century. Unthen's physical handicap was that he had no arms, yet he mastered the violin and thrilled audiences by playing the instrument with his feet. He could even wind his own watch. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Broker's Tip, a racehorse owned by Colonel E.R. Bradley, won only one race in his entire life. But that race was the Kentucky Derby. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell a story about how nature played a cruel trick on man. Among the rocky hazards to sailors and ships in the 17th century were the Scilly Islands of England. In order to keep ships away from the treacherous rocks of Scilly, the lighthouse of St. Agnes was built. In those days, of course, the source of light came from a fire, and, ironically, the very first boat to carry the fuel to light the fire in the newly erected lighthouse never reached her destination. She smashed into it in the dark and was wrecked. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Dick Allen of Happy, Texas, born without ears or ear openings, could hear distinctly through his mouth and became an excellent musician. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you a story about a baby who commanded an army. Duke Godivart Godfrey III of Brabant, Belgium, succeeded his father as sovereign when he was only 3 months old. As soon as he was on the throne, war broke out, and it became the baby's duty to lead the army into battle. He was placed in a cradle in charge of a nurse who strapped him between 2 trees right on the battlefield. The battle was won, and the infant was credited with the victory. A commander-in-chief in diapers. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Among the stranger memorials left on Earth is a chief's grave in the Banza Sangabando tribe, marked by all the gin bottles he emptied in his lifetime. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a potentate who lived 2 lives. The Rajah of Kolampur certainly led a double life. By day, he ruled an Indian state with a population of over 1 million people. But when it grew dark, the Rajah disguised himself as a robber. Then, leading a band of thieves, the Rajah plundered and robbed not only the subjects of his own kingdom, but his own treasury as well. He was even so bold as to offer a reward for the capture of this gang, the gang he led himself. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
One great quirk in marine biology is the porpoise. They have as many as 96 teeth, yet they swallow their food whole. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a queen who was one of history's great killjoys. Theater-goers and playwrights alike had a long, long wait between seasons during part of the reign of Queen Marie Anne of Spain. Because she considered her son, the 4-year-old King Charles II, too young to understand such things as theatrical drama, the Queen closed every theater in the country. Her reason was simple. If the King of Spain couldn't go to the theater, then the King's subjects shouldn't go to the theater either. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Ludwig 𝒆𝒍'𝒔, a gym teacher from Salzburg, Austria, climbed 7 mountains, each over 9,000 feet, on a single day. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a misplaced building. America's great historic debates and the passage of laws almost didn't happen in Washington, D.C., for the national capital was originally planned to be located in Alexandria, Virginia, not the District of Columbia. The original site is now the location of the George Washington Masonic Memorial Temple, a 400-foot-high temple that cost $5 million, paid for by no fewer than 3,200,000 contributions. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Charles Galpin served Minnetonka, Minnesota as preacher, teacher, shipbuilder, tinsmith, surveyor, mailman, and dentist. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a man of extraordinary talent. News didn't travel very fast in 1776, and there's no question the creation of the United States was going to be the news story of the century. What a potentially complicated story it was, too. A new nation, a new kind of government. How wise it was, then, that the Continental Congress engaged one Reverend Peter Johann Miller, who translated the Declaration of Independence into Latin, French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, German, and Russian. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Wealthy natives in Angola, Africa, are buried beneath their luggage, so they'll have their possessions for life in the next world. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a dream that came true. Do dreams ever really come true? Or are they merely a form of wishful thinking? For John Helder, a farmer from Soham, England, a dream was something more than mere fantasy. It was rooted in fact. So when Helder dreamed of falling in love with a girl he saw in his dream, he began to search for that girl from house to house for months, until finally he actually found her. The girl from his dream became his happily married wife for 40 years, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys, believe it or not.
King Henry II of England, in a campaign to wipe out robber barons, destroyed 1,115 castles, believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a gruesome wedding ceremony. If the wedding announcement appeared in the local newspapers, there's no question it would be the news story of the day. For Elizabeth Kelsey and Jonathan Titus were married in a graveyard. It seems the day before this Salisbury, Vermont couple were to be wed, the bride's brother died. It was decided, however, that the late brother would attend the wedding anyway. So the couple exchanged their wedding vows beside his open grave, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys, believe it or not.
Sultan Murad IV of Turkey hurled a 4-foot palm staff a distance of over 1,300 feet while riding his horse, believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a place where a criminal could remain free. In the movies, the criminal being chased very often finds his sanctuary in a conveniently located church. But in ancient China, a place to find sanctuary was a matter of fact. It was called the Sanctuary of Chungking, and every criminal who climbed this rock ahead of his pursuers was assured safe refuge, just as long as he stayed inside the pagoda, which was some 120 feet high. Actually, a prisoner of his own freedom, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys, believe it or not.
The purest well water in the world comes from St. Anne's Well in Malvern, England. The water is 99.99992% pure, believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a church with hidden treasure. Somewhere in Batz, France, a treasure of gold lies buried near the church of Saint Guineau. Unfortunately, there's not even the crudest treasure map to follow. Only the dying words of the builder, who said he buried the treasure in a spot touched by the shadow of the church tower. Today, more than 400 years later, the treasure remains unfound. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys, believe it or not.
Manlius Aquilius, Roman governor of Sicily, was punished for his greed by being forced to swallow 10 pounds of molten gold, believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a king with a one-track mind. The temple, built by King Lai Tai Ton in Hanoi in 1049, was created because of a strange and moving dream. In the dream, King Lai saw the vision of a one-legged goddess, and it so affected him that he had one of his own legs amputated, married a one-legged queen, established a court populated by one-legged courtesans, and built a temple that rises on only one leg, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys, believe it or not.
Count Julius Litta of Russia was so fond of ice cream that he ate 5 pints at dinner every day for 49 years. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a strange fashion in women's hats. Fashion may be fickle in most parts of the world, but in Oléron, France, fashions, at least in women's hats, haven't changed for centuries. For today, the so-called chaperon chapeau women of the town wear huge hats, designed originally in 1339 to discourage romantic attentions of English soldiers. The hat is called a cuissino, a French adaptation of the expression, kiss me not. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Geoffrey Hudson served as a captain of cavalry in the British Army on combat duty. Yet, he was only 18 inches tall. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a church built because of spilled ink. Perhaps it was one of the earliest ink blot tests, but the results are startling indeed. For in Buhl, France, 2 identical churches were constructed side by side. It seems a resident of the town, in his will, ordered that his estate be used to build a church. But there was a splatter of ink on his will, and this was interpreted as a request for not 1 church to be built, but 2. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Prince Pyotr Lapukhin of Russia was awarded his country's highest honor for humanism because he prohibited flogging of people over 70 years old. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a strange omen. Sailors have always been superstitious, and perhaps one reason is the story of the Paris C. Brown. She was a riverboat plying the waters between Plaquemine and Cincinnati. While tied up at Plaquemine in July 1889, 2 rats were seen slithering down the lines off the boat. 3 crewmen who saw this, prompted by superstition, also walked off, the only survivors of the Paris C. Brown, which sailed and vanished. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
In a cow fighting contest in Aosta, Italy, the animals fight more fiercely because they're forced to drink a mixture of wine and gunpowder. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a dog who betrayed a king. A dog is man's best friend? Not as far as King Richard III was concerned. Maffei, the pet greyhound of King Richard, on the day the monarch was captured in the castle of Flint, ran to his master's bitterest rival, the Earl of Lancaster, and licked the Earl's hand affectionately. The dog thus becoming the very first follower of King Richard to switch allegiance away from his king. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The stentor, a water animal, has the most violent death in nature. It ends its life by exploding into minute particles. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an unlikely death for a mountain climber. For sheer strength and bravery, and perhaps a touch of the theatrical, few could match Tita Pias. Pias, the famed alpine mountain climber and guide who lived in Cortina, Italy, climbed the forbidding Winkler Tower, 9,000 feet of sheer rock, with his 5-year-old son strapped to his back. Pias, who had climbed the steep, forbidding Beaujolais Tower 300 times without mishap, died in a fall from a bicycle. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Colonel Henry Mellish of Blythe Hall, England, lost $485,000 in a single game of cards. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the brilliant sleepyhead. There are sleepwalkers, and in Canada there was once a sleep thinker. He was Dr. Newton Wolverton, distinguished Canadian minister. While attending Toronto University, Wolverton fell asleep after spending 36 hours trying to solve a mathematical problem. And when he woke up 12 hours later, he found the correct solution to the problem, worked out in 50 pages of calculations, all in his own handwriting. Believe it or not.
Is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The key to the French Bastille, seized in the French Revolution, was presented by Lafayette to George Washington and has remained at Mount Vernon ever since. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the passionate pastor. Throughout history, gigantic acts of wisdom and revolution have been born in the church pulpit. Preachers, pastors, and saints have stirred millions. But what about the pastor who stirred himself? He was the Reverend John Otterson of Moncton, Scotland, who preached a sermon every Sunday for 15 years, but would become so overcome by his own eloquence, he would faint before he could complete it. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Duke Albert was so puny as an infant that doctors prescribed a daily dose of wine, a prescription he followed for 84 years. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the church that had a coincidental beginning. Man leaves the monument of his lifetime in many ways. A church, for example, is not uncommon. But for George Meyer, his monument had a touch of the ironic and bizarre. Meyer was responsible for the building of the Church of Neustadt in Schwarzwald, Germany, spending 20 years of his life raising the money to build it. Finally, on June 29, 1888, the church was completed, just in time for George Meyer's funeral services. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Marshal Suvorov, one of Russia's most celebrated military leaders, personally awakened his soldiers by crowing like a rooster. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a Canadian, Joan of Arc. Heroics in the time of the early wars with the Indians were as commonplace as the wars themselves. But one instance of supreme heroism belongs to Madeleine de 𝑴𝒆𝒍'𝒔, who successfully defended Fort Dangerous near Montreal against a fierce attack by 50 Iroquois Indians, aided only by her 2 younger brothers, an old man and 2 soldiers. She held out for 8 days until reinforcements arrived. Madeleine was a mere 14 years old. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Henry Temple was appointed chief clerk of the Treasury of Ireland, a $10,000 a year job, when he was 7 years old. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a trick pulled on Napoleon. The life of a double agent, particularly today, has been made as glamorous as it is daring. But imagine playing double agent in Napoleon's time. The Count de Blacas did. His assignment was to spy on the exiled King Louis XVIII. But instead of spying, he shared his spy's salary of $40,000 a year with the king. Later, he was made a duke by the king as a reward for his honesty. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Reuben Smith of Amesbury, Massachusetts, is buried sitting upright in a chair in his tomb with his favorite pipe and checkerboard. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the greatest literary award in history. At a time when Portugal was a world power, it was common for kings to give land to loyal adventurers and talented artists. However, King João III of Portugal believed in the big giveaway. The king was so enthusiastic about a history of Portuguese Asia, written by João de Barros, that he gave the author the whole state of Maranhão in Brazil, a piece of real estate 3 times the size of New York State. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
William Lilly, celebrated English astrologer, served as official fortune teller in the British Army to improve morale by predicting victories. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the prophecy that became history. Was it prophetic or was it mere coincidence? Did George Washington have that undefinable look of greatness in the making? Consider the facts then. Some 14 years before Washington was elected President of the United States, a special residence was provided for him by the Provincial Congress of Massachusetts Bay on July 2nd, 1775. It was a mansion in Watertown, Massachusetts, known as the President's Mansion. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Robert J. Ingersoll, famed 19th century attorney, charged as his fee for appearing in court $1,000 an hour. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a siege that ended in romance. In the long and exciting history of England's Oliver Cromwell, there is an episode of love and military strategy. Marie O'Brien, the beautiful redhead whose husband was killed fighting Cromwell, agreed to surrender her castle of Lemanoff, Ireland, to Cromwell's besieging armies on one condition, that Cromwell order one of his officers to marry her. A Colonel John Cooper volunteered, and they lived happily ever after. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Dr. John Kay, master of Christ College in Cambridge, could identify each letter of the alphabet at the age of 6 months. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a castle with a strange reason for being. Danger, keep off the grass, warning children at play, familiar signs in the 20th century. But one of the more curious signposts to be seen in England is a castle. It's the castle of St. 𝒆𝒔, constructed on the border of England and Wales to prevent accidental crossings by Welshmen into England. A good idea, because an accidental crossing in those days was punished by cutting off the right hand of the trespasser. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
There was a survivor from Custer's last stand. The horse, Comanche, wounded 7 times, still lived to be 28 years old. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an odd way to dress a harem. In 1611, Sultan Ahmed I of Turkey found himself in a somewhat embarrassing position as far as his 3,000 wives were concerned. It seems the Sultan simply couldn't afford gifts for the entire harem. How did the Sultan solve his gift-giving problem? He merely declared war on Persia for the sole purpose of getting hold of the gifts that he couldn't afford. 1 million pounds of Persian silk. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A law passed in Shaftesbury, Vermont in 1803 banned the teaching of grammar in its public schools as a useless subject. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you how an ancient tribe anticipated modern warfare. The theory behind the guided missile turns out to be not so modern as one might imagine. The theory, of course, is the missile is intended to hit a specific target, which is precisely the idea that ancient Britons had. These early warriors would rub the stones they fired from their slings in the brains of slain enemies, in the belief the missiles would have sufficient brains power to fly right to the target. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A well located in Great Valley, New York, actually inhales and exhales because of variations in barometric pressure. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a person who cheated death. Most of the great memorials built around the world are in memory of the dead. But there's a memorial in Edinburgh, Scotland that was built for the opposite reason. It's in honor of someone who escaped death. It's carved in the stones of a house that had collapsed, trapping a young man under piles of stone and timber. On the memorial, there's a portrait of the boy and the words with which he greeted his rescuers. Heave away, chaps. I'm not dead yet. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The first official act of King Henry VI was to approve a decree stating he could be spanked by his royal nurse. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a patriot who lived in exile. He taught music for years in Buffalo, New York in the late 1800s and early in the 20th century. But his heart and his talent were really in Mexico. He was Jaime Nuno, who was forced to leave Mexico in 1854 and spend the remainder of his life unknown to his countrymen. A particularly cruel fate, since Nuno was the composer of the Mexican national anthem. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A tombstone in Vermont reads, I put my wife beneath this stone for her repose and for my own. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a man who never seemed to grow up. Francisco Sicardi Hongo of Venice was the most incurable juvenile the world has ever seen. He survived 5 marriages, never suffered a day's illness. His eyesight and hearing were phenomenal to the last. His hair turned black at age 100. He received a government appointment at 115, grew new teeth at 116, and until the end, this venerable Venetian never lacked the companionship of a young lady. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Wickham Mill in England was built from the timbers of the American warship Chesapeake, captured in the War of 1812. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about doctors who moonlighted. Physicians have been responsible for many great inventions that had nothing to do with medicine. Dr. Timothy Bright invented shorthand. Dr. Nicholas Barabin invented fire insurance. Dr. James Sim of Scotland invented waterproofing. Dr. John Gorey conceived modern refrigeration. Dr. Richard Gatling invented the rapid-fire machine gun. And Dr. William Francis Channing of Boston invented the fire alarm. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Mahjong, the most popular game in China, was invented by Joseph P. Babcock, an American. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a soldier who worked magic to win a kingdom. A humble French lieutenant colonel won an empire 14 times as large as France, and not a drop of blood was shed in the process. This charmer of conquerors was Charles Parfait Montiel, who plunged into equatorial Africa armed with a mere 12 Senegalese soldiers, $16,000 in cash, and 24 empty treaty blanks. 27 months later, this daring Frenchman emerged, the money all spent, but with treaties that gave France an empire. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Benjamin Franklin did not originate the idea of the lightning rod. It was discovered 1,000 years earlier. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the greatest one-man job in history. He was probably years ahead of his time, and that's why Pierre-Paul du Riquet, Baron de Bonrepaux, took on the construction of a canal linking the Mediterranean and the Atlantic at his own expense. Local authorities, unconvinced of the feasibility of the project, refused to share in the cost. So Riquet built the 158-mile canal and paid $68 million in gold for it himself. And it's still in use today. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The official flower on Father's Day is the dandelion, because the more it's trampled on, the better it grows. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an incredibly loyal soldier. Records of man's ability to live out his life over 1 or 2 centuries are actually commonplace. But the story of Jean Tourelle of Dijon, France, is spectacular in its longevity. Tourelle served in the French army over 3 consecutive centuries. He joined a regiment in 1699, fought and served through the 1700s, and was still serving France in 1802 when he was given a pension by Napoleon. Service that totaled 103 years. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The famous 100 Years' War actually lasted 114 years. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a sight to send terror into those who saw it. Riding, the great warrior astride his horse, returning from battle in Jhajjar, India, to his home in Bahu, riding hard for 26 miles. And what a sight it must have been, too, for the rider, Shah Ghazi Kamal, was headless. An enemy sword stroke had cleanly severed the head, but his seat in the saddle was so secure he remained on his mount, who returned home carrying the original headless horseman. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A mule named Boston Curtis was elected Republican committeeman from Milton, Washington in 1938. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the Never Never Gate. The gate of Traquair Castle in Scotland was slammed shut in 1745 and has never been opened since. Its owner, an ardent believer in the cause of Bonnie Prince Charlie of the Stuarts, ordered the gates closed, threw the keys into the nearby Tweed River, and vowed the gate would only be opened when a Stuart ruled Great Britain. But the Stuarts lost, and the gates remain closed, a symbol of a lost cause. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Marie Augustine, the Marquis de Pallière of Brittany, spent 50 years in prison, charged with whistling at Marie Antoinette. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about some facts that are really unfacts. A silkworm is not a worm, it's a caterpillar. A Mexican jumping bean is not a bean, it's a hollow shell containing worms. School chalk is not chalk, it's plaster of Paris. A caraway seed is not a seed, it's a dried fruit. A firefly is not a fly, a glowworm is not a worm, they're both beetles. A mosquito bite is not a bite, it's a puncture. And the French phone is not French. It was invented by Robert Brown, an American. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Natives of the island of Arran off Ireland fish from a spot that's 300 feet above the sea. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a grateful company of soldiers who saved a comrade. In Sackett's Harbor, New York, there's a structure that recalls a curious episode in the War of 1812 against the British. It concerns an American soldier, not a lofty monument to his bravery, but rather evidence of the fact he was a deserter. The soldier facing execution for desertion was pardoned only because he single-handedly constructed a drinking well right on the battlefield so that his thirsty comrades in arms would have fresh water. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Alexander Drummond offered to join the 79th Cameron Highlanders if he didn't have to start at the bottom. So he enlisted as a sergeant. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a courageous queen. Perhaps it was because she was a perfectionist in all things, or one of history's most tragic theatrical hams. She was Queen Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of King Henry VIII. While the Queen was imprisoned, she was told that the following day she would be executed. And in order to perform the function of being beheaded properly, the Queen asked for and received the block and axe in her cell so she could rehearse her own execution. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Samuel Carr House in Jamestown, Rhode Island, is stone on one side, wood on the other, and nobody knows why. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the shyest women in the world. The familiar veils of the women of North Africa are nothing compared to the modesty portrayed by the women of the Comoro Islands near Africa. These shy females leave their homes only completely cloaked in a tent-like covering, an almost ghost-like cloth that doesn't have any openings, not even slits for their eyes. So they must grope blindly or be guided wherever they go, never to be seen by anyone outside the family. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Whether he was history's greatest mercenary or just liked to fight in wars, Nicholas Franz Bachmann is unique. He was a general in the armies of 5 different countries: France, Sardinia, Austria, England, and Switzerland. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you a tale of espionage. Prince von Kaunitz, Chancellor of Austria in the 18th century, was a man whose life was racked with fears and suspicions. His informers told him a spy, identity unknown, had been planted among a group of government officials. The informers knew he was one of 4 men who enjoyed rowing together on Sundays on the Danube. The prince ordered all 4 men drowned, knowing that as he killed the spy, he also killed 3 innocent men, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The crypt holding the ashes of John 𝒆𝒆𝒔, the famous maker of lenses, and the ashes of his wife, is located under the telescope of the Allegheny Observatory in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a man whose life ended with incredible fate. Antonio Biancani, an 18th century banker of Milan, Italy, was born in a cell in the state prison where both his parents had been imprisoned in 1699. Later, after his release, he rose to high rank in the banking profession and became involved in politics. Accused by the courts on a charge of treason, Biancani was sent to jail and incredibly went to his death from the same cell where he was born. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Mrs. Charlotte Wisconsin Van Cleve, by being born in what then was an early U.S. territory in 1819, was actually born in 4 of the United States: Iowa, Wisconsin, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the most trustworthy man in history. The Caliph Walid ruled in Syria in the 8th century. Most rulers in that time were cruel and cunning, but the Caliph was trustworthy and fair. When it was time to pay for the construction of the $29 million Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, the Caliph refused to believe anyone would be dishonest in building a temple to God. He paid the bills and ordered them burned without looking at them. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Svobodniki, a Russian sect of British Columbia, eat no meat, eggs, fowl, or dairy products. They don't use leather or wool and do all their work by hand. It's against the religion to make use of any animal's labor or product. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you a tragic love story. Mary Pugsley of Bristol, England, spent a lifetime in mourning. Her husband, who was called to battle in the siege of Bristol in 1645, was killed the afternoon of the day they were married. Mary spent the rest of her life as a widow. Her sorrow never left her, for on her deathbed 60 years later, Mary made a strange request. She asked that she be buried in the dress she wore at her wedding. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
William Billinge was born in a cornfield in Longner, England, lived a very full life, and died 112 years later in the same cornfield. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the touching story of an American patriot with a strange deathbed wish. Robert E. Craddock was a patriot to the core and proved it up to his dying day. Craddock, a Revolutionary War veteran of Warren County, Kentucky, was about to die in 1837 when he made the following preparations. He got out of his deathbed, donned his Revolutionary War uniform, asked for a piper and a drummer to march around his house playing military airs, so that the last sounds on earth Craddock would hear were his beloved regimental marches. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Pygmy brides in the African mountains of the moon add another oddity to the many tribal rites involving marriage. These ladies, on their wedding day, paint a replica of high-button shoes on their legs. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a queen with a very short memory. A lady who looked lightly on love was Catherine Tudor of 16th century Wales. This cold-blooded woman accepted proposals of marriage from two suitors during the funeral of her first husband. Not only that, when her second husband died, she married Sir Richard Clough, having assured him at the grave of her first husband that she'd marry him at the death of her second. Catherine also buried Sir Richard without mourning and married a fourth time. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Colonel Harry Smith, who has a city named after him in South Africa, once saved a town under siege by 15,000 bloodthirsty natives by riding horseback 100 miles a day for 6 days. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a ruler who spent most of his life in jail. In the rocky political history of Turkey, there is no stranger story than the one about Sultan Mohammed VI. He was placed under strict detention at the age of 4 months. While the political scenes shifted outside, Mohammed remained a prisoner inside. In 1918, after Mohammed had been a prisoner for 57 years, he finally became Sultan, the last Sultan of Turkey. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Alexander Grant, the celebrated Scottish poet, was 7 feet tall and was so unbelievably strong he could crush in his fist a handful of the practically unbreakable shells of sea snails. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of the ruler whose debt was paid with beautiful girls. In Betanzos, Spain, there's a small bridge built in 1200 A.D. It seems the King of Castile, because of an obligation imposed upon him by the Caliph of Cordoba, was forced to furnish 100 female slaves each year to the Caliph. Tiring of this wasted womanhood, the king built the bridge, which signaled the end of his obligation. Even today, the bridge is still called the Bridge of the Young Ladies. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Of all the animals hunted for food, one of the most versatile is the twin-horned gemsbok. This animal is sought not only for meat, but for water. The gemsbok stores a supply of pure drinking water inside his body. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a man with colossal nerve. Sir John Price, it seems, was so grief-stricken by the death of his first wife, he kept her embalmed body in the bedroom for 11 years, even after he'd taken one Mary Morris as his second wife. After the death of Mary, he had her embalmed body installed in the same bedroom. But soon Sir John was convinced that dead wives in the bedroom wasn't the best way to show one's grief. Who changed his mind? Wife number 3. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Leonard Rosey, a Parisian playboy, proved he was a man without nerves. He proved it by shooting a bullseye with his pistol while inside a cage of ferocious lions. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a man's experience in death. David Owen, a celebrated 18th century harpist, was on his deathbed and had sunk into a deep coma. His family thought he was dead. But Owen awoke and asked for his harp. He said he'd heard a heavenly tune and wanted to play it before he died. His mother copied the music as he played, and as the last note died away, so did Owen. Thus, this gifted harpist became the only musician in history who composed his own dirge on his deathbed. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Chapel of St. Nicholas on the island of Santorin is the only ancient temple in all of Greece that's been preserved intact. This perfect building, a former pagan sanctuary, is 2,300 years old. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the prophetic stonecutter. Robert Russell, a stonecutter who lived in New Tannards, Ireland, chipped and hammered at the epitaph. It was on a pillar in the local abbey. Russell was 27 years old, and the epitaph he was cutting was his own. Probably because he had time on his hands, because at the time he was in perfect health. Yet, a few days after the young stonecutter finished his own epitaph, he died. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Tsar Nicholas I of Russia was so moved by a poem read to him by its author, Alexander Poleziev, he began to cry. But in the next moment, the Tsar coldly sentenced the poet to life imprisonment on a charge of treason. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the ritual of pain. A cabinet meeting among the Tabori tribe in the African territory of Chad is anything but quiet and dignified, particularly when it's time to inaugurate a new chieftain. At this important and ceremonial event, the cabinet officers gather round the chief-elect and beat the man with clubs for a solid hour. If he endures the savage clubbing in stoic silence, he's considered by the cabinet to be worthy of the office. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Girls in Nidwalden, Switzerland don't waste any time in making known they're marriageable. The girls wear a single pin in their hair that's shaped exactly like a Cupid's arrow. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a bar bill that led to a fiery disaster. The castle of Runkelstein, Italy, suffered an extraordinary fate. A friend of its owner, Duke Frederick of Tyrol, had run up a bar bill of $20 and found himself unable to pay. He sent a messenger to Runkelstein Castle asking his friend for a loan. He said he'd give the money only if the Duke appeared in person. The Duke never forgave his friend for this insult, and he later attacked the castle with an army and destroyed it. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Designing clothes for a fisherman from Nazare, Portugal can't be too much of a problem as far as pockets are concerned. These people only have one pocket, and that one is in their hat. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a ship that was destined for disaster. The schooner George F. Whitney, commanded by Captain Carpenter, was a doomed ship from the time she was built. On her first voyage, she was wrecked on Sugar Island in the Great Lakes. On her second trip, she was shattered at Vermilion, Ohio. Her luck continued bad. And on her third voyage, the George F. Whitney vanished during a storm on Lake Michigan with all hands and was never heard from again. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The official staff of the mayor of a village in Czechoslovakia is carved in the shape of a human arm with the index finger and thumb curved in the characteristic American sign for OK. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a man who never forgot his brush with death. Robert Quirk, an English shipowner, was caught in a storm-riddled voyage on the Bay of Biscay. His ship was being battered to pieces, and he vowed that if he and his ship ever survived, he would show his thanksgiving in an everlasting way. And he did. Returning to Minehead, England safely, Quirk dismantled his boat and used its lumber to build 11 poorhouses, which still stand today, 3 centuries later. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The post offices in rural Celebes, Indonesia, have a simple yet unique way of identifying the mail. A special delivery letter, for example, always has a rooster's feather attached to it. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a man's glimpse of life. Dennis O'Hampsey lives as a legend in Ireland for two reasons. First, he was a talented and beloved harpist. Second, O'Hampsey had lost his eyesight at the age of 3. For 109 years, he was unable to open his eyes. But in the last moments of life, while playing his harp, his eyes suddenly fluttered open. And then O'Hampsey, the blind harpist, died with his eyes wide open. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Is it possible to bowl 299 and a half? James T. Blackstone did. On his last roll, one pin split, and half of it remained standing. Score, 299 and a half. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the story of a man with a curious attitude about clothes. Dr. John Blackwood of Mount Holly, New Jersey, was a successful physician, judge, and postmaster. He left over $30,000 to his heirs. Yet the good doctor had a curious attitude about how money should be spent. On clothes, for example, Dr. Blackwood was particularly frugal. In his entire lifetime, he never owned more than one shirt. And while this was being laundered, he remained in bed. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A house in St. Nicholas, Wales, in which famed Oliver Cromwell spent one night, was so respected by the family of a neighboring castle that for 300 years, each member of the family tipped his hat when passing the structure. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about one of the strangest armies of all time. When Lieutenant Jean Perrier of 𝒆𝒍'𝒔, Switzerland, retired from military service, he took up a strange hobby. The officer was a brilliant tactician and master of military drill. In retirement, Perrier organized a drill team that performed a manual of arms to perfection and crisp, close-order drill. His drill team, however, wasn't composed of men. It was a regiment of frogs. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The merry-go-round tree of Mumbai in Central Africa pivots itself during storms to withstand the force of the winds. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a place that remembers a horrible past. One of the most grisly and terrifying periods of English history was the reign of Henry VIII. Symbolic of this time was the dreaded London Tower, where princes and queens, dukes and barons were executed or left to die in chains. Even today, there is strange evidence of the madness of the early times. For the Tower Green, where 3 queens were executed, is now covered with paving stones because grass simply refuses to grow on the tortured spot. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Johann George Krunitz wrote a 242-volume encyclopedia in longhand. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a way that a man chose a woman for marriage, regardless of beauty. Medieval English churches were usually equipped with a heavy parish chest, which determined whether a wedding would or would not take place. It was used as a premarital aptitude test by prospective young brides. To pass, a candidate for marriage had to lift the 30-pound lid with one hand. If she flunked, the girl was considered too weak to cope with the arduous tasks of a housewife, and the groom could call the whole thing off. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Bedrooms in the cantons of Grisons, Switzerland, have tiny windows opened when the occupant is dying, so his soul can escape. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about cows who grow their own gold teeth. Not to be confused with the goose who laid the golden eggs, were the cows in the state of Washington who actually grew gold teeth. Amazing, but a matter of fact. These bovines grazed in the Alder Creek Basin near a famous gold mine, and as they chewed, they picked up gold dust embedded in the ground. The chemical combination of lime in the cow's teeth and the gold dust created a perfect and permanent and valuable gold dental crown. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Bees in the state of Goiás, Brazil, cannot sting. They also produce sour honey. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a tennis star who made his point in more ways than one. It seems Charles de la Haye, the famous French tennis star, was not satisfied to prove his skills on the tennis court by winning scores alone. He once stepped onto the court dressed in the full uniform of the French National Guard, carrying a full field pack, musket with fixed bayonet, sidearms, plumed helmet, all the ceremonial regalia, and played 4 sets of tennis this way, beating his opponent, who was in conventional tennis clothes, by a score of 3 sets to 1. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
At the Amarillo Tri-State Fair, a racehorse named 1760 won its race and paid $17.60. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a curious sort of home sweet home. The people who live in Cycre, a small village on the island of Crete, never spent Christmas at home, or the New Year, or any other day in the winter, because it's impossible. The town literally disappears in the winter, covered by an onrush of water which buries the homes and shops of these island people. However, come the first signs of spring, and the waters recede, then disappear, and the villagers return, set up housekeeping again, until the next flood. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Lincoln is the only president of the United States whose last military rank before becoming chief executive was private. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the craziest military drill in all history. Tsar Nicholas I of Russia devised one of the craziest and, in a sense, cruelest military drills ever known. It was called the water drill and was designed to perfect a crisp marching style. The drill consisted of a soldier who practiced goose-stepping while carrying a glass of water on top of his military hat. If the Russian soldier spilled as much as a single drop, he was obliged to serve an additional year for every drop of water he spilled. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
For King Henry II of England, it was always good to be on your toes. Maybe that's why he always ate his meals standing up. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you how a gesture of good manners helped a lady become a queen. The ways of emperors in choosing their wives have intrigued historians for centuries. Leo VI of the East made his choice a genuine competition among the ladies. Each candidate was obliged to sit barefooted on the floor, and at a signal, each arose, donned her slippers, and executed a curtsy. The winner of this curious contest, Theophano, became empress for 25 years, all because she could curtsy better than anyone else. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Dasi of Africa, an animal smaller than a rabbit, is the nearest living relative to the elephant. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the man who had a strange hatred of money. Joseph Hadik Barkosi of Hungary was one of the earliest cases of a man desiring to become a woman. He wanted to become a woman legally because he hated money. It seems the law required a family fortune to pass on to the male member of the remaining line. But Barkosi wasn't interested. He had the courts declare him a woman, and the fortune was passed on. He did, however, change his name from Joseph to Josephina. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Perhaps one reason why the elephant has been employed by men in heavy-duty construction work is that the elephant is the only animal with 4 knees. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a man possessed by his name. Baron Hermann von Mitternacht, Prime Minister of the state of Württemberg, was certainly preoccupied with his own name. Mitternacht is an adaptation of the German word for midnight, and midnight became the ruling force in his life. He was married at midnight. He ate his main meal at midnight. He signed all official documents at midnight, named his dog Midnight, hired servants named Midnight, and among many other things, died.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Marie Antoinette never really said, "Let them eat cake." The actual words in translation were, "Let them eat rolls." Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you a story about a toothache that led to a massacre. A toothache that affected Queen Namasole of Uganda, Africa, also affected the entire population of a neighboring province called Vuma. The queen, in her anguish of pain, consulted some tribal witches, who said the queen's toothache would be cured if she put the entire population of Vuma to death. The witches' weird cure was tried. 25,000 people were driven into Lake Victoria and drowned. But mass murder didn't cure the toothache. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Danny London was hit with a lucky punch. Born deaf and dumb, he was hit during a boxing match, and the punch gave him his hearing and his speech. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the church that's always up to date. Salisbury Cathedral bears the curious creative talents of her builders in the form of features related to the calendar. It has as many doors as there are months in the year, as many windows as there are days, as many pillars as there are hours, as many sculptures as there are minutes in an hour, as many consecration crosses as there are seconds in a minute. However, the architects neglected one detail. The tower leans 22.5 inches off center. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Long before there were any of today's methods of measuring, people in India measured distances by the sound of a cow's moo. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the blood-curdling story of a doomed man's last reward. One of the great injustices in the bloody French Revolution was the execution of Antoine Laurent Lavoisier, the founder of modern chemistry. He was arrested on totally trumped-up charges and sentenced to the guillotine. But France's great scientist was not to die without recognition of his contribution to learning. So Lavoisier was awarded France's highest scientific award, the Wreath of Everlasting Flowers. The next day, they cut off his head. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The first holiday greeting card ever sent in America was sent by none other than pistol-packing Annie Oakley. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the incredible story of the greatest clothes horse in history. Prince Wenzel von Koenigsegg-Rydberg, an Austrian chancellor, was the most clothes-conscious man who ever lived. For 57 years, he changed clothes completely 30 times a day. Assuming he slept 8 hours a day, this meant a change every 32 minutes. And this wasn't merely jacket and trousers. It involved laces, decorations, countless effects. Yet, in spite of his preoccupation, he was the leading figure in European politics for 42 years. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
One of the great geographical oddities in the world is the harbor of Forio in the Isle of Ischia, Italy. The water in the harbor is so hot you can boil an egg in it. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a strange way to die. In February 1908, Baron von Kirstein led a caravan of 40 men in an attempt to conquer Mount Karasimbi in Central Africa. At 12,000 feet, a furious gale began howling through the mountains. The mountain climbers were gradually being frozen by the frigid winds of these high altitudes, in spite of the fact they were directly on the equator. The grim toll reached 20 dead, frozen to death under a tropic sun. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A colorful touch to the court of King Abd el-Motadid of Seville were the flower pots. They were made from the skulls of enemies killed by the king in battle. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a living library. Hanawa Hokichi of Japan became blind at the age of 7 and devoted the rest of his life to teaching. His memory was so vast he was able to store the contents of some 400,000 manuscripts, which he compiled into the Gunsho Luiju, a work of almost 3,000 volumes, and still considered a priceless reference work by students in Japan. A library created by a blind man. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
It must be quite a crazy sight to the visitors, but beggars who go out on the Yangtze River to meet foreign steamships paddle out in wooden bathtubs. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the useless military guard. The fantastic reputation as warrior and conqueror belongs almost exclusively to Napoleon. In fact, only recently has the fear of Napoleon been finally dispelled. It happened when a man named Chummy Barton died in 1944. He was the last of a long line of armed sentries maintained by the English to watch for the return of Napoleon over the Strait of Dover, even though Napoleon had been dead for over a century. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The Russians don't really have an H-bomb. How could they? There's no letter H in the Russian alphabet. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the extraordinary story of a tree that became the costliest tree in history. The Tree of Obedience, located in a barren desert in Egypt, is some 1,600 years old. The legend is that a saintly hermit took a dry stick, stuck it in the ground, and told a disciple to water the stick until it bore fruit. It took the entire night to complete the trip to water and back, and he watered the tree every day for 3 years until it sprouted fruit. Altogether, 500,000 man-hours have kept the tree of obedience alive. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Taking up a musical instrument? Try the kisar. This African instrument is made of a human skull and the horns of a gazelle. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you the amusing story of a princess who kept a dark secret. The first equestrienne to ride side saddle was Anne of Bohemia, daughter of the German Emperor Charles IV. She was born with one leg shorter than the other and was unable to ride a horse in the normal fashion. A special saddle was designed for her so that she could ride with both legs on the same side. Her vanity kept her from revealing the secret of her deformed legs, so that the saddle was termed a fashion innovation rather than a horse-mounted wheelchair. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A tooth of the famed physicist Sir Isaac Newton was purchased for £730, over $3,000. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a man who inherited his own fortune. He lived to tell about it, how he inherited his own fortune. He was Félix Zeme, the noted French painter. After earning a fortune as a painter of Venetian landscapes, Zeme retired. To such utter obscurity, he was presumed dead. Just before his fortune was to pass to his relatives, he reappeared. But because the red tape of proving himself alive was so vast, he rewrote his own will, leaving his fortune to himself. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
As a form of punishment, King Eystein Ilrad of Norway made a greyhound dog the ruler of one of his districts. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the opera singer who was almost killed by her voice. Elizabeth Billington, the great English opera singer, was undoubtedly conscious of musical criticism, but only up to a point. She was the victim of the strangest criticism an audience ever tendered a performer. It happened in Naples in May 1794. In Inez de Castro, she sang with such beauty and power, Neapolitans accused her of causing volcanic Mount Vesuvius to erupt a month after her performance. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A cat was born on the Stetter Ranch in Nebraska with the cattle brand clearly visible on its side. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a governor who had nothing to govern. John Whitaker held one of the most curious jobs in the history of American government. It was actually no job at all, but he was committed to it by the will of the people. He was elected governor of the state of Oregon before it was a state. People who lived in the Oregon Territory were pretty sure of being admitted to statehood, so they held their local elections anyway. But Governor Whitaker was unable to govern until Congress made Oregon a state. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Mosquitoes prefer blondes, but they're female mosquitoes, the only ones who bite, and they consider the skin of a blonde less resistant. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the man who couldn't sleep. Armand Jacques Lerbet of Paris suffered a terrible affliction. He couldn't sleep. As a child during the French Revolution, Lerbet had an accident. An observation stand collapsed, damaging his brain. Rushed to the hospital, he ultimately recovered, but couldn't close his eyes. His condition lasted all through life, 71 years, yet he became a great lawyer, widely known as the legal light that is never extinguished. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The United States has observed only one national holiday in its history, the 100th anniversary of Washington's inauguration. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the oldest language in the world. The oldest language in the world isn't spoken between one man and another. It's spoken between man and the elephant. It's the language of the Indian mahout, the professional elephant driver. In addressing the elephant, the mahout uses neither Hindi nor Arabic nor Persian, three of the oldest still-spoken languages. Rather, he speaks to his elephant in the language of the caveman, with which the first elephant was trained 50,000 years ago. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
On the same day the United States went off the gold standard, a man reported his goldfish turned silver. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about an act of patriotism with a twist. To Mrs. 𝒆𝒆𝒔 of South Africa, a once-in-a-lifetime coincidence happened during World War II. Mrs. 𝒆𝒔 baked 150 cakes for a detachment of troops stationed in Europe. After she'd finished her baking, she noticed that her wedding ring was missing and concluded it was lost in one of her just-baked cakes. Mrs. 𝒆𝒔 sent the cakes off with a note in each, asking for her ring if it were found. The ring was found by Sergeant Ronnie 𝒆𝒔, her own son. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
You can tell how fast you're traveling on a train by listening to the number of rail clicks. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the king who condemned a river to death. The Gidnis River, now known as the Diyala in Iraq, is the only river that was sentenced to death and executed. The prosecutor in the case was King Cyrus of Persia. While crossing the river, he lost one of his sacred white horses in a drowning accident. The king was so incensed, he ordered channels dug to divert the waters of the river. And the river did die for 1,000 years, until the sands dried up the channels and the river flowed once again over its original course. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Aristophane, an ancient Athenian legislator, was impeached a total of 75 times, but never once convicted. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a game of chess that drove a man crazy. The game of chess figured in a strange medical experiment. Count 𝒆𝒍'𝒔, a famous Hungarian scientist in the 1800s, went insane, and the game of chess was prescribed as a possible cure, the idea being that concentration would help the brain. A young student was hired to play chess with the mad count, and they played for 6 long years. The count was cured, but the student went out of his mind. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
John Coleridge Patteson, Bishop of Melanesia, compiled 25 dictionaries, each in a language he had just learned. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a marriage, 14th century style. The court of King Pedro I of Castile was apparently in need of a marriage counselor, for this king was involved in a marriage with a curious twist. It took place in 1354 at Cuellar, Spain. The bride was Juana de Castro. No one really knows what happened, but the following day the king had the marriage annulled and left without ever seeing the lady again. Thus, she became history's only queen for a day, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
The dome palm tree of Egypt is the only palm tree with branches and bears fruit that tastes like gingerbread. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a king who couldn't say no. Dulu Murad Khan, ruler of Rawalpindi, India, was known as the cruel philanthropist. In a time when the death sentence was administered for the act of begging, Dulu Khan was frequently accosted and asked for money. He would either give the beggar a lakh of rupees, worth $48,500, or have the beggar killed. The death sentence was administered when the Dulu Khan was momentarily short of cash because he couldn't bear to say no, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A second-hand statue of Lord Byron was purchased in London and erected in Ecuador, honoring a different poet named Olmedo, because to build an original would have cost too much. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a bloody oath. Ling Wen called his Chinese emperor, Young Lo, a traitor to his face and was sentenced to have his head cut off. But people counseled the accused to beg mercy of the emperor so that he might live. However, Ling Wen refused, saying he'd call the emperor a traitor even after he died, which is exactly what happened. For as the blood dripped on the sand from the severed neck of Ling Wen, it formed the Chinese character for the word traitor, believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
In a war during the reign of Empress Anna Ivanovna of Russia, cannons and cannonballs were made from blocks of ice. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a terrifying day when a missionary's prayers were answered in flame. Miracles do happen. One happened in the Kyukyu territory in Africa, where Mr. and Mrs. Stuart Watts and their 4 children had a mission. Bloodthirsty Kyukyus had besieged the Watts mission. Declining an offer of military help, the family prayed for a miracle and got one. A blinding light in the sky scared off the savages, caused by a flaming meteor, the first to ever fall in that part of Africa. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
A playing card decorated with an original miniature painted by the artist Hans Holbein was sold at a London auction for more than $13,000. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a fabulous talent. Sir Walter Peratt, the organ virtuoso, made his debut at the age of 7 and was the organist of St. George's Chapel in Windsor, England for 42 years. He was a musician of tremendous concentration. In 1862, for example, when he was just 21 years old, he gave a concert of the masters blindfolded and at the same time played 2 games of chess behind his back and won both games. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction, and this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Wakanda Springs in Kansas has salt water, a tide that rises and falls, yet it's 600 miles from the sea. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about the strangest criminal code in the world. Ancient and primitive societies have always dealt strongly with their womenfolk. Either they were veiled or silent or belittled in one way or another. But these family rules are nothing compared to the laws in Pontianak, an island off the west coast of Borneo. In this delightful community, it's a capital crime to save a woman from drowning. It's the way they express their pride that their women are the best swimmers in the world. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
To cure double chins in early England, beauty parlors would haul a woman into the air by a strap beneath her jaw. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a man who made a strange decision. Roger Atkinson Pryor of Petersburg, Virginia, was made an offer that few men would have had the courage to refuse. He was offered an appointment as a brigadier general in the Confederate Army by General Joseph E. Johnston. But he politely yet firmly refused, stating that the Army had too many generals as it is. Its real need is more private soldiers. Pryor served as a buck private throughout the Civil War. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
Benjamin Milam, noted Texas hero, was the only person to own a United States river. Congress gave him the Colorado River in 1835. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a prince's cruelty. It probably didn't matter whether the old fellow was a good ruler or not. The issue was that he seemed to be on the verge of ruling forever. He was King Alangsitu of ancient Burma, who ruled from 1075 to 1160, a remarkably long reign of 85 years. King Alangsitu would have ruled even longer, but he was murdered by his own son, Narathu, who was afraid his father would rule forever. Believe it or not.
Truth is stranger than fiction. And this is the proof. This is Ripleys. Believe it or not.
William D. Graham sat in the same chair on his golden wedding anniversary that his father and grandfather sat in on their golden wedding anniversaries. Believe it or not. In a moment, I'll tell you about a labor of love. The town of Bunzlau in Silesia, Germany, which specializes in pottery, is still proud of a gigantic piece of crockery fashioned by a lovelorn potter's assistant in 1753. To gain the hand of his master's daughter, the young assistant created a huge pot, which so impressed the citizens of the town that they talked the father into letting his daughter marry the young man. The pot was even adopted as the city emblem. Believe it or not.
Well, friends, what did I tell you? Strange stories, right? But here's the real twist. Some of the most unbelievable stories didn't come from distant lands or mysterious figures. They came from the life of the man who collected them. Let me leave you with a few truths about Robert Ripley, and you can decide for yourself whether they belong in one of his own panels. Ripley became one of the most famous men in the world during the 1930s, receiving more mail than nearly anyone alive, second only to the President of the United States. He once sparked outrage by claiming Charles Lindbergh wasn't the first to fly solo across the Atlantic, and was buried under more than 170,000 angry letters. Believe it or not, he was right. He traveled to over 200 countries, collected thousands of strange artifacts, and built an empire on the unusual, and yet he was shy, avoided crowds, never finished high school, and preferred working alone late into the night. And in a final twist worthy of his own show, Ripley died in 1949 while working on a broadcast of Believe It or Not. Even at the end, he was still sharing the unbelievable. And friends, if you enjoyed tonight's journey and would like to support the channel, you can always buy me a cup of coffee using the link in the description or comment section. Every bit helps keep these broadcasts going, and I'm grateful for it. Until next time, when the strange becomes reality and the unbelievable turns out to be true, good night or not.